So welcome back to Mackie Tech, and yes, I am in an arm sling. I had shoulder repair a week or so ago, so I am getting back slowly but surely, so thank you for your patience. I've done a couple of videos in the past about the importance of backing up your data. One of those options was using a NAS, in my case, a Synology NAS, to back up your important information. But what about if you want to back up your NAS, by back up your backups, so you have a backup of all of your backups on one backup. Okay, that sounded funnier in my head. So today we're going to take a look at a couple different options to back up the NAS, one being local, one being in the cloud, and you can also use an off-site option with the Synology NAS using Hyper Backup. So let's jump into using Synology's own Hyper Backup and see how that works to back up our Synology. So let's start with local backups, and we're going to be using Synology's own Hyper Backup. Hyper Backup allows you to back up any type of shared folders, app packages. It supports multiple versions as well as location. You can see currently that I have about 3 or 4 different backups right now. I have my Synology DS920 backing up to my Synology DS214, and they're actually right next to each other downstairs. I have a Google Drive backup, and I have a local backup, and this is going to an external hard drive downstairs as well. And then I have a Synology C2 backup, which is in the cloud. Let's go ahead and start another one, and we'll walk through the way this works. So if I click on this plus sign right here, I can back up folders and packages. I can do the entire system, or I can back up LUNs. I don't happen to have any LUNs on this system. So let's start with folders and packages. I'm going to click on Next. And as we said, we can back up to Synology's C2 storage, or we can do a remote NAS device. And by remote, it just means another NAS device. It doesn't have to be in another location. It can be right next to it, as mine is. Or you can back up to a USB drive or a thumb drive if you have it installed on your NAS. You can also back up to cloud services, as I have. I'm using Google Drive. You can also use Dropbox, Microsoft Azure, a bunch of other ones that are in here. So I'm going to go ahead and we're going to just use local or shared backup here and click on Next. And then you can have multiple versions as well as a single version. I would think that the single version would be the option you'd want to use if you want to be immutable. But that's not specifically what it's for in this specific app, but I'm sure you could set it up that way if you wanted to. We're going to go with multiple versions. So click on Next, and then you're going to give it a backup name. And this directory is the name of the directory that it will create. So click on Next, and then it's going to ask you the data that you want to back up. And again, this can be folders, like the shared folders that are on your Synology. And these are all the ones I have. Here's my YouTube stuff. Sorry, my dog is freaking out. So my YouTube stuff, I'm going to click on Next. And then it's going to ask me to back up any of the Synology apps that I'm using. And I can click on File Station, and that's going to back up the settings in this example. It's not going to necessarily back up the data, but it's going to back up the settings, my favorites, any links that I've created. So click on Next, and then it's going to ask us to what we want to name the task. I can name it Local Storage 2. I can have notifications, and what that does is that it'll actually notify you when a backup is completed. It'll send you an email. You can compress the backup data, which is probably recommended just to save yourself some space. And then you can decide on what type of a schedule you want. And you can also encrypt it. And then it's going to ask you for rotation. So rotation, the way that works is, let's say you want to have 3 backups total, but you always want to have a new backup every other week, let's just say, for example. So if I have a backup every Friday, but I want to keep at least 3. So what happens is that as long as I have 3, the system will always delete the oldest backup. So that's how rotation will work. It'll, in this sense, it'll say from earliest versions. I can tell it how many different versions I want to keep, and 256 is a little bit crazy. let's just say 2 for now, and then it'll show me my summary and I can click on done and it'll go ahead and do the backup. I'm not going to do it right now, but that's how you get that set up. If I look at my current local storage, I click on the option here, and then I can go click on the Backup Explorer, and then it shows me all the different data points that it backed up, and these are all the different types of backups it did. It shows all the different data points that it actually did the backup in terms of what it is retaining. If we click on our Google Drive and then go to edit, you can see that I have one folder that's backed up. And then my schedule is that I do it every weekend, and I have a rotation, so it backs up to 3 versions, and it rotates those out. And that's kind of how I have each of my backups, just depending on what it is I'm backing up and the frequency. Another option, which technically isn't a backup, is to utilize Synology's snapshot and replication app. Now, that's better for if you want to do short-term and quick recovery, but if you want to do long-term backup, it's always recommended that you run a full backup. This brings us over to backing up the Synology in the cloud, and we're going to go back to Hyper Backup, and let's go ahead and take a look at how Synology's C2 storage app works within Hyper Backup. So that brings us back to Hyper Backup, and C2 is Synology. That's their own cloud, what they call C2 storage, and it's $59 for 1 terabyte, and then $69 1 terabyte. You have more options for encryption and sharing the folders and those types of things. But it's exactly the same thing as the other ones in terms of setting it up. And I have it configured right now just to back up some of my YouTube assets. So if I click on Synology C2, and then I click on the options here to edit, so I have a schedule of daily, and I have a rotation of 2. So that's my C2 backup right now, and I have 1 terabyte plan 2, which is the $69 one. So it's working out pretty well. It took a good couple hours to back everything up, but I like it so far. I may or may not keep it. We'll see. Now, the benefit of C2 is that it's right within Hyper Backup's ecosystem. I can use it right within Hyper Backup. I don't have to open up any other program. And this brings us to my preferred backup as of now, which is iDrive. So let's take a peek at how iDrive works with Synology. As I mentioned, it does have other apps for other NASs. It's currently running a promotion for $69 for 5 terabytes, which is significantly more affordable than C2's at $59.69 for 1 terabyte. Even at its full price of $99 for 5 terabyte, it's still a better deal. And iDrive is a full-featured backup system. It does cloud, it does local, it does workstations, it does servers, it does M365, it does Azure, it does S3. It works with Synology, QNAP, Netgear, Suter. I don't think I'm pronouncing that correctly. So as I mentioned, iDrive has its own app that you download from the Synology package store. And here it is here. I'm going to open it up. Here is how mine is set up. Backup, a restore, scheduler. It's similar to the Hyper Backup, where you can schedule a number of different backup tasks, and then it performs them at the time that you specify. And you can set it up to be, as I said before, you can set it up to rotate. So one of the cool things that I like about iDrive is it has what's called Express Backup. And Express Backup is where iDrive will actually ship you a physical hard drive. And the hard drive comes to your house, you put all of your data in one fell swoop onto the disk drive, and then you mail it back to iDrive, and then they download all of your data into your iDrive account. And I did that the first couple of years with all of the big storage I had. And that way I didn't have to spend hours and days backing up all of my stuff. So I could just do a one-time backup. Everything was fine. And with your account, I'm pretty sure you get 1 time a year you can do that with iDrive Express. So just to show you how this works, if I go back to iDrive, I click on Create New Backup Set right here. And then I give it a name. We'll just say demo test, and then I select, these are all of my shared folders on my NAS. I was thinking of backing up all of my snapshots from my Proxmox, but that would pretty much max out everything I have on here. So I'm just going to click on Docker for now, and then I can select files and folders if I want to get granular, and I'm going to click on Schedule Backup, and then it's very similar to Hyper Backup. I just click on the time to start it, daily or whichever day of the week I want it to take place. I can do it monthly, I can do it hourly, and then I can have it notify me when it's finished, or I can have it notify me only if it fails. And then after you click on all this, you click on update schedule, and then it adds it to your schedule, and then it puts that on the queue. Here is the demo test that I just started, and I can go in here and cancel if I want. And so that is how iDrive works. So today we talked about strategies to back up your NAS locally, in the cloud, and potentially off-site. If you use all three of those strategies, and congratulate yourself, you're one of the funny few that use the 3-2-1 strategy, which technically is 3 backups, 2 in the cloud, 1 in the cloud, 2 off-site, however you want to slice it up. I was curious as to what system you guys are using for all of your backups. If you have a dedicated backup like iDrive, or if anybody is using Veeam. Now, Veeam is more of a small business solution, but there are people that use it for home office and small office environments. If you found today's video helpful and you liked the content, please give it a like and let me know in the comments below any constructive feedback you might have. If you want to reach out to me, I'm at Bluesky, and I will list my website in the description, and you can fill out the contact us form if you have any questions. Also, make sure that you are subscribed to MacuTech, sorry that's my dog, so you don't miss any upcoming videos, and we will be talking to you again very soon.